MJC episode 151. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
Dave, we have made it to the Mewtwo stage of our podcast. We're 151. How does it feel? Feel good? Feel special?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's Mewtwo. God, I hope that's Mewtwo. Someone will correct me.
All the stuff is starting to show up in some of the Facebook memories and Twitter notified me the other day it's X years old, and I'm like, huh.
Son of a bitch. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there. So,
yeah.
So we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that releases every Thursday, 6 a.m. Eastern Time on podcast services on your devices. If you could leave us a review on any of those devices, that'd be helpful. If you can use your little touchscreen or keyboard to write some words while you're leaving that review, that's extra helpful. Sharing the show is also super helpful. And then we live stream on Twitch. twitch.tv/digitaldaysgaming, where you can watch us. As you know, my wife's telling me I look too short on stream, or you can where while you're watching us, you can subscribe to us on Twitch if you choose to, because we're a Twitch affiliate, so you can link your Amazon Prime and your Twitch account and get Prime Gaming, and you can use a free sub through Twitch that way, or you can just sub for $4.99. And that is available on mobile devices. So if you're listening on the audio version of this and you want to support us easily and you have Amazon Prime, that's the easiest way to do that. And then there's other show notes, other links in the show notes where you can check out to support us. And we're going to jump right into the news.
Yeah, hopefully no one's tired of hearing about us talk Xbox acquiring Activision Blizzard. But it's starting to get a little bit more spicy. The UK, I got to get the title right. It's the UK Competition and Markets Authority. They have decided to further investigate the acquisition. They're going into, I believe, what is called Phase 2, which is the deepest I think any country's looked into this acquisition. And Microsoft is kind of tired of that shit. So Microsoft basically came out and just listed the reasons why PlayStation shouldn't worry, and also explained that they think that the UK board has immediately just taken PlayStation's side. There have been reports that as soon as it was up for investigation or review, Jim Ryan flew to the authority and started to shake hands. Which makes sense. That is his home turf. It is, you know.
I was gonna say he's from UK. I think he was based out of Europe, right? Sony. He was head of Sony Europe for a while.
Yeah. Which I believe was based in London. I believe, but I could be wrong on that. This whole Sony Europe thing has always confused me on where is it located, the headquarters. But it's his home turf, and it immediately started to make news reports a couple weeks ago that he went down there personally to tell them why this is bad. And some people were vilifying him for that, but in reality, he's part of
it's business.
Yeah, it's business. Even if he doesn't think it's going to happen,
he's trying to protect his brand, and he's using his connections, because I'm sure he has connections in Europe, obviously, to help do that. The part, and I think you might get into some of this, but the part that I have a little bit of a problem with some of the reading and some of the videos that I've listened to or watched and skimmed articles, I hardly ever read anything anymore, unfortunately, is it just seems like the CMA, which at first I thought was a take on the Country Music Awards.
There's a weird thing for me too. I couldn't quite figure out what I thought it was.
Yeah. The problem that I have with this basis from the Competitions and Market Authority is that they seem to be hey, Sony's our boy, we're going to protect them. And they're regurgitating Sony. Yeah,
and that Microsoft came out, were hey, your concerns are misplaced, I believe. And you adopted Sony's complaints without considering the harm to consumers, is what Microsoft
and Xbox
stated.
Even kind of crushed itself.
We'll get into this right now if you want to go through what Microsoft basically said about themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to you've always talked about this, real numbers, what numbers actually are, what numbers Sony says or Microsoft says, and what numbers are publicly released. And I think his name is Tom Warren.
Yes.
For The Verge, he tweeted something out in reference to this of where Sony or Microsoft came out and said I don't or I think Xbox said, like, we don't understand why Sony thinks that they're concerned about this when they have a 3-to-1 market share on console sales.
They basically
they said 153 million versus like 63 million, right?
67, I believe. It was like 150 something.
But none of those numbers jive with anything that we've publicly seen.
Yeah, because Xbox has been secretive about
their numbers. But Sony's don't jive either.
No, so basically what it sounds like Microsoft did, because Microsoft at this point, they can't lie about PlayStation's numbers. So they have the real number. So they basically combined all the PS4 sales and the PS5 sales into one number.
But even then, like what he was saying in Tom Warren was saying in one of his tweets is that the public number we know of what PS4 is, plus what we thought the last number for PS5 is, doesn't equal this 150 million plus.
Yeah, but they also picked a 20-year. They're like, Sony's been leading the industry for 20 years.
Okay.
And it's like, no, they weren't leading during the Xbox 360 era during that time at the start. So they're kind of combining, I guess, if you look at 20 years, PS3, since that's about 20 years old now, or almost, and they're combining that just to make Xbox look smaller. But in the same, they're being like, hey, we only have moved 67 million Xbox Ones and Xbox Series. They specifically leave out the 360 market, but they include the PS3 market.
It would have hurt their case.
Yeah.
And then PS3, it would have helped their case.
But like the idea that like Jim Ryan, he went to his boys in the UK to push this. I guarantee Microsoft went to their boys, in the US to get that cleared. Like this happens in every area. This just happens to be like Jim Ryan's home turf. Like this is his territory. But it was interesting that basically what PlayStation told the CMA is like, hey, Call of Duty is the biggest game on our platform. If Microsoft acquires them, ironically, they're like, they might have exclusive content that's only on their platform. They might...
What?
They might give content to themselves first before anyone else. And it's just like, okay. And they might make the content better on their system. And then ultimately they might put it on Game Pass. And it's just funny because how long has PlayStation had the play it first on PlayStation deal with Call of Duty? I would probably say like 10 years.
Since the birth of PS4.
Yeah. Betas come first. This past beta was first on...
Exclusive game modes.
Yeah, exclusive game modes, operators.
As recently now as Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah.
Exclusive content. Going all the way back to Destiny. Exclusive
Final Fantasy VII Remake isn't on Xbox. It's on PC.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny. But basically, Xbox basically had to put out this whole list of like, hey, PlayStation's significantly bigger than Nintendo and like significantly bigger than Xbox. To where Xbox basically had to reveal like, hey, last two gens haven't gone well for us. And then how they said like, hey, we're still going to release Call of Duty, and we doubt a lot of people are going to abandon their PS5s and PS4s for Game Pass Call of Duty, which is, we'll see how that plays out in the long run. And then also, they talked about like, hey, since we tried to acquire Activision Blizzard, PlayStation has acquired Bungie, Savage Games, two other studios. They have a stake in From Software. They've also invested heavily in Epic Games, to where basically Microsoft is like, hey, PlayStation's acquiring things too, and it just kind of turned into like this reverse pissing contest with both companies being like, no, we're poor, this is going to destroy us, and it's just kind of hilarious.
The problem that the root cause, bottom line problem that I have with Jim Ryan's stance on what he's trying to do, again, like it's a business thing and it's fine. Like ultimately, like billionaires fighting with billionaires, wiping their butts with $1 billion. But if you think that Activision's board didn't go to Sony and say, hey, we have an offer. This is how much the offer is for, what do you think? Like, do you like that? If you don't think Activision tried to sell itself to Sony, whether Sony had the money, didn't have the money, was in the
ballpark,
interested in acquiring the studio or not acquiring the studio, like somebody came and knocked on the door and said, "Hey, bro, like, let's talk." And they're like, "No, we're good." Sony said, "No, we're good."
Yeah.
And now they're complaining. Like, this is like you going to your friend's house and borrowing his car every day and then getting pissed off that your friend sold his car and you can't drive it anymore.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Activision did go to Sony, like, hey, we know you can't afford it, but if you partner with, like, Tencent or something, you guys could probably afford it. Or Activision could have, Bobby Kotick could have with the PlayStation, it was like, how much can we get for an investment in terms of, like, hey, we'll extend this exclusive offer. Probably not enough money that Blizzard needed, or Activision needed, for that, but... Yeah, I'm just so fascinated with the idea that both of these companies right now, these billion-dollar companies, are just like trying to get sympathy, like from the government and also their fan bases of just like, hey, we really need this, or they don't need this, and it's silly. It's hilarious though.
Yeah, it's just like just let it go. Like, this is not. I mean, not necessarily like just let go of it or whatever, but like this is happening. Like, and the money was spent, and to be honest with you, like in terms of the economic structure of the world, it got through the U.S. It's gonna get through the other stuff.
I mean, yeah, like the deal. I don't think the deal can be stopped at this point with like every other like regulation board basically agreeing to this deal. Like, I don't know what happens if the UK is like, we won't approve this deal, but like the US, Brazil, Canada,
does it mean that
and
Sony still gets to publish Call of Duty in Europe only?
Yeah, like what is the weird solution? Like, no Game Pass in Europe.
Again, I guess it was because at one point in time it was like, and now it's being taken away. But like, I don't see Jim Ryan going, Nintendo has Mario. That's not fair.
I mean, at this point, we might see that.
I'm just saying, like, I don't get it. Like, you have, everybody talks about whether, like, and we and I think Michael and I are on the same page. Like, exclusivity nowadays is bad for gaming, but it's good for business.
Yeah,
and that's what dictates the business
and competition.
Sony can't stand there in 3 weeks release a Game of the Year juggernaut contender that can only be played on PlayStation and then complain when their competition goes and buys a juggernaut to only release on their console.
But also is still willing to release that juggernaut on their platform. Like that's the part where it gets tripped up. Xbox is like, hey, don't worry, Call of Duty will still be on PlayStation because we would lose money if we didn't still put it out on PlayStation. It's just going to be free for our user base.
Right. And we don't really know, like we talked about this too, we don't really know like the future of Call of Duty in 2027, 2028, which is around the time when we would actually see this take effect. By then, it just could be Warzone or another version of Warzone. And if they do free-to-play platform at all, it's going to be on everything.
Yeah, and that's where it's going to be funny, where it's going to be like, wow, you guys really fought to have this free-to-play franchise.
Right. And there might be more, don't get me wrong, there might be more perks for Game Pass subscribers of... You get you get double XP weekend. I don't know.
I mean, Destiny had special costumes for PS Plus members. Fortnite has, I think when you first get PlayStation Plus, they'll be like, hey, here's free things you have. And it's like, here's a Fortnite costume pack. So there'll be stuff like that. For sure.
I don't get it. I just, like, at this point in time, like, and it's just the numbers are fascinating as well of, like, just how much, sure, Microsoft skewing their statistics, but it's almost a 3-to-1 ratio. So like, what are you really complaining about? You already have the market. Like, they're already, is the Series X competing with the PS5? Sure. Competing versus a 3-to-1 to like a 2-to-1 now versus a 3-to-1.
And it's 2-to-1 over multiple SKUs too. So it's like,
right.
Things are different. What I think is like the main thing is like, Sony is not a company at hitting on all cylinders right now. The only division that's working for them is PlayStation. So Jim Ryan or whoever would be in charge of PlayStation, like if it wasn't Jim Ryan, the head of PlayStation would have still fought. So basically he has no choice but to fight for this because It's the only brand that's making money.
Jim Ryan should just shut up at this point in time. Like, run the company quietly and let Hulse talk. Because when Hulse talked like 10 days ago, it sounded so much better.
Yeah. Well, I think
like when we talked about the game, the games as a service day one on console and on PC, and the way that he would be like, oh, of course, it's foolish to not do that. Like, that doesn't make proper business sense. Like, he spoke analytically, directly, complimentary. Like Jim Ryan needs to stop talking at this point in time because he's the penny
Herman
counter.
Hulse talks like a CEO. Herman Hulse is very. Well, I think what helps
and
is
he always has, even when he ran Gorilla.
No, that's what I was going to say.
On stage.
Like
yeah.
he has the experience of talking to media because he was promoting his games for so long. To where it's like, if you tell me in 5 years Herman Hulse is in Jim Ryan's spot, I wouldn't be shocked because Herman Hulse seems like he is ready for that moment of being like the head.
And they might even just do something like that from a public relations standpoint of giving Hulse the title. And then telling Jim Ryan, keep doing what you're doing. Just go in that room and shut the door.
Well, that's when he becomes a board member as opposed to.
Well, no, he could still have the same title, but like now you're in the little dark corner and you're doing what you do well, and that what you do well is not talk to the public.
Yeah, it's like Jim Ryan is a talented executive. He is not a talented speaker. No matter how many interviews he does in magazines or websites or whatever the hell he does. He probably just needs to not do it, you know? He's never going to be a Phil Spencer, and I think that's where he gets the pressure, is like, Phil Spencer seems like a chill dude. Kind of comes across really, really well. Who knows how he actually is.
Because he looks stoned all the time.
Because he probably is. But, like, for the most part, Phil Spencer, like, is really good at talking to, like, the fan base, to video gamers. But... So Jim Ryan is just like, well, I have to do that too, but Jim Ryan just looks awkward every time he does it and fumbles over words or comes across too aggressive.
I feel like he has to do it every 3 times that Spencer does it once. Like, Spencer doesn't really come out, and I don't recall him speaking as much and doing as many articles. Most of the time it's after Ryan does something and he's like, okay, well, I guess I have to respond to this. I don't want to. And he sounds like irritated and annoyed by it. But, or he'll, like we were concerned, everybody was concerned about the Bethesda the Bethesda Xbox merger, and they went on stage together and they said, here you go, here's Bethesda. And he's like, I'll see y'all. I'm going over there.
Yeah. But also, like, Phil Spencer at least has, like, a social media presence in terms of, like, he just tweets. Like, he'll tweet, like, oh, I'm enjoying the new Mario game, or I'm enjoying God of War, I'm excited to play it. But you could never imagine Jim Ryan picking up a controller and playing a game, and that comes across when he's in these interviews, which there's nothing wrong. I don't mean like a CEO needs to play games, but it's a nicer image, and it's more relatable when the person in charge is actually playing video games. Like, could you imagine Jim Ryan talking about like his favorite video games?
Well, I know, because like he doesn't have the like I've seen like in. Again, it was like we were covering PlayStation during the time. I've seen Sean Layden sit down and play a game.
Yes.
And he's been fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen Shu. I saw Shu play a game.
Yeah.
I've seen Adam Boyce play games. Like I've seen these guys play games. I've never seen Spencer play a game. I've never seen Phil Spencer.
I've seen Spencer play games. But yeah.
But Jim Ryan's got to be like the same age as like my dad.
Oh, let me look it up.
Like, and Phil Spencer's like, what, 10, 12 years older than me? Maybe at the most. Like,
I don't know.
I think Spencer might be in his early 50s. I mean, that, again, not that age matters, but, like, in order for you to be able to relate to gamers, similar to how Spencer's been doing it, like, he plays what's out there. Like, he plays, obviously,
Jim Ryan's
plays
54.
Wow.
Does not look 54. He looks significantly older.
But like, obviously we know that
they're the same
Spencer,
age.
No way.
They're both 54.
See, I thought Spencer was in his early 50s. I thought Jim Ryan was in his mid 60s.
No, it says Jim Ryan's 54.
Okay.
That's wild. They do not look the same age. I don't know who we should be Phil Spencer, like, clearly he's doing something good, but Jim Ryan just doesn't look it, and I don't want to be mean. Also, PlayStation send us God of War to review. I don't think that's happening after the Jim Ryan talk. But yeah, I guess they're the same age. But like that shows you like a difference in how they're perceived.
So I'm not the only one that thinks that. Advent's, I think Advent's agreeing with me in chat that that Ryan was older. I assume.
Yeah. But that's also the perception we have. that like Advent cracking Dave. It's part of the whole perception thing, and this kind of when he does like the GQ and the Wired interviews, it's always just like, what are you doing, dude? And because we think he's older than he actually is. Not that it matters. Please, no one talk shit or attack us for saying Jim Ryan. But
I don't
old.
think that like.
But it is a perception thing.
Do you think that Jim Ryan goes home on a Monday night and plays the Switch?
No. Like, Phil Spencer, when The Last of Us Part 2 came out, tweeted like, I'm enjoying the game, and you can picture him playing it the weekend it came out. I doubt like Ryan played Halo Infinite the weekend it came out. Sorry, that's the only Xbox exclusive I can think of because they suck at releasing exclusives. Right. But like
Ryan's not playing Scorn.
No. I mean, he might be in a Scorn. Like if you told me Jim Ryan was into some kinky games, I would believe Scorn. I don't know why. I see you, Jim Ryan.
All right. So
God, Scorn came out.
Yeah.
It's on Game Pass, right? I gotta try that.
Yes, it is. So, all right, let's move on because we kind of beat that dead horse and it went down a direction I didn't expect to go down.
No, we didn't. Jim Ryan's kink is what we went down. We're not getting God of War for review, so who cares? All right,
not getting God of War 4 for review at this point.
No, never. He'll grandfather in. Like, no, they said I like Scorn. Splinter Cell Remake's director has left Ubisoft. So David Greville, I'm probably mispronouncing his name, quietly on LinkedIn announced that he was leaving Ubisoft after 11 years. So now the Splinter Cell remake doesn't have a director. You can tell this was a very slow news week for us because we're talking about this. But we just got the announcement, earlier this summer, like, hey, we're making we're making a Splinter Cell remake. Here's the team. Here's the director. It's happening. A couple months later, the director is gone. Yeah, that kind of sucks, but it's probably too early in development to actually have an effect on whatever this game might be.
Yeah. I don't really care. It seems like it's par for the course for Ubisoft at this moment.
If you've been there more than 5 years, you're leaving.
Yeah, I haven't really played much of the Splinter Cell franchise to be concerned or to bother me. At this point in time, I feel like no matter what they did with Splinter Cell, people would be like, "It ain't right."
Oh yeah, anytime a franchise has been dormant for as long as this one has been.
This isn't my Splinter Cell.
Yeah, especially its modern day Splinter Cell. But it was going to use like the Snowdrop engine, which is the Avatar engine, which looks really good.
Mario Rabbids engine too, by the way.
Is it? That's a versatile engine. If it can,
the Division 2, Avatar, and Mario Rabbids.
You know what? That's why you never hear Ubisoft being like, "We're moving to Unreal Engine," because they can get that engine to go.
It's a damn good engine.
Yeah.
If they have a hard time getting games out, but when they get them out, they look good.
And they look different. Like most of their games look different. This is probably too early to actually have an effect on it, but this is just another one where the game was just announced to be announced, which probably means like nothing has actually been done on the game.
How much of this do you think, like now that you just said that, I don't mean to interrupt you like I always do, but how much of this do you think was them trying to get an investment or get somebody to buy them? Like, hey, we're working on Splinter Cell, we're working on Prince of Persia, we're working on this, we got Avatar, we got Star Wars.
I mean, Tencent,
come buy us.
Tencent, Tencent? Is it Tencent that made the investment in the brothers at Ubisoft?
Yeah.
It probably could have been a part of that, where they're like, hey, look at our Twitter engagement when you announce this new game. Please give us money. Yeah. It probably totally was a part of that.
We got the original Splinter Cell guy. Okay, here's $10 million. Okay, bro, you can go now.
Yeah, it's like cash out. There you go.
Round numbers again, please don't.
Yeah. We don't know finances. No one ever count how we calculate shit. But yeah, this just makes me think that this this kind of still shows that like Ubisoft is kind of lost outside of like Assassin's Creed and the Rabbids partnership, basically with Mario, which Rabbids probably wouldn't exist without the first Rabbids Mario game being successful. To where it's just like Ubisoft, they know how to do Just Dance, they know how to do Assassin's Creed. Everything else is just kind of chaos, and somehow they get Division games to come out every couple years, and Far Cry, but the Far Cry stuff has been on a very steady slide down. But yeah, it's just don't expect Splinter Cell. It's going to be in the dungeon with Beyond Good and Evil 2, and Skull and Bones. Prince of Persia. So don't be like, hey, what happened to that Splinter Cell thing? It's like, 3 months after they announced it, like people left the team. So sucks to suck. Hopefully we'll get it eventually.
Yeah.
But this is like a common story we have for Ubisoft of like, these people are leaving either on like good terms or bad terms.
Well, and to be fair, like we know that Ubisoft has had problems as a company, as a corporation, with like how it treats its people and how its upper management did stuff. But at the same time, like I almost forgot, like they kind of a couple years ago announced like a narrative change in direction. So like whether they actually executed it or didn't execute it, some of this stuff can be fallout from that, of where the guy's like, well, yeah, I just want to make Splinter Cell like I've always made. And they're going to be like, no, we want it to be like a games as a service Splinter Cell. And he's like, well, I don't want to do that. Like, that's not the game I want to make. That's not the Splinter Cell that I want to make. And that could be why he's leaving. Like, maybe he was led to believe one thing, and then they brought the service team in, and he goes, what the hell is this? And they're like, well, we got to figure it out. Like, you do the story part, we'll do the engagement part. And he's like, no.
Yeah. Or they just were like, hey, well, this is the window that we need this game to launch. And there's like, no, that's not going to work. Especially Ubisoft. I'm assuming the pressure is building on Ubisoft at a certain point. Like, hey, we got to get stuff outside of Assassin's Creed to work. Hopefully Avatar works out for them. I don't know if Avatar is going to work out for them. Right. But I think they're skipping Just Dance this year. So like they're in a weird spot in terms of like they're consistent money makers. Like there's no Assassin's Creed this year, but they're going into that like weird games as a service, not games as a service thing. So they need to figure out what they're going to do in the long run. That isn't Assassin's Creed, especially as they want to be acquired by somebody. And delaying stuff like at the last second, like Skull and Bones, is not a good look. And having creative directors leave is not a good look. But we'll see what they end up doing. But yeah, Ubisoft continuing to be Ubisoft. All right, Dave. This last one you threw in just because there's one more after it too. But... Oh, there's one more. Oh yeah. We'll do that one at the end. But Gotham Knights. There's some last second revelations happening with Gotham Knights. The first one is the game on consoles will only be 30 frames per second, and there will be no performance mode. This is kind of significant because they're dropping it. Was it the week before the game came out? Like this news came out like late last week. Yeah. They specifically dropped the previous gen, the PS4 and Xbox One consoles.
Due to development challenges.
Yes. And they wanted to make sure they have a strong performing game. And then it comes out that the PS5 and series versions of the game will just be 30 frames per second. They just couldn't get it to go.
The rumor and speculation is they're actually like, and again, I don't think this is from Warner Brothers or from
Montreal.
Montreal. Warner Brothers Montreal. Sorry. Yeah. Is that they're blaming the Series S.
That is the rumor. Yeah.
Even though it has the same GPU as the X, and I think a similar one to the PS5. Don't quote me on that.
Significantly less RAM and teraflops though.
Correct. But it's only a 2-player co-op. Initially, I think we thought it was 4-player co-op. And there's no cross as of now. There's no cross-play functionality.
Yeah.
So those are things that I would almost give them a pass for if they said, "Hey, we're having a hard time. Blah 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 blah. We shot for 60. we can only get like high 40s, low 50s inconsistently, so we're going to lock it at 30 to give the better experience for the gamer, which is probably what they're saying now also. But it seems super weird to say it a week before launch. And I also find it fascinating that nobody either saw this or noticed this, or they covered it up in all of their trailers and their previews.
There was a preview thing that came out not too long ago that didn't make the game look good. Like, I don't know if you saw some of the stuff that came out.
The music, like...
there's
like
a bad cover in there that just seemed out of place.
Fight like a girl or something.
It was the Ricky Martin song.
Yeah. I don't know if we got bamboozled, because I don't know if anybody ever asked them, because I think it was kind of one of those things that was like expected, is that with series consoles and PS5 that everything's like, we'd always talked about it, like what's the expectation for what is your minimum expectation for next gen, and it was always 60 frames. 1080p 60 frames.
Yeah. And most people found out 40 frames is actually very acceptable too, but we just don't get that either.
So I don't know if they've ever, like, I guess the only reason I would ever feel like that we were lied to or bamboozled or whatever is if they said it, and I don't think they ever said it. But I also am not a fan of not saying it.
Yeah, dropping it in a Reddit post, I think, is where it was dropped.
Yeah,
or on their forums.
Yeah, like that's bad. And then also like how and again, like maybe they covered it up better. If it comes out that they did, like I would be very curious if they have, and I haven't looked, but like did Digital Foundry take a trailer and put it through the ringer from 6 months ago and say, hey, this was 60?
Yeah, like the trailer.
And if that comes out that, hey, this was 60, or this gameplay preview or this IGN first was 60, and then the final product's not, that's significantly different to me. Like, you did something in development.
Which is weird. Or there was previews and your
vertical slice.
No one talked about it during the previews.
That's a concern for me then, because your vertical slices, okay, you can do it for 10% of your game, but you can't do it for 90% of your game, or 4% of your game, whatever this vertical slice is or isn't. So like that would be a little concerning to me. And yes, I agree with you that I think somebody would have seen that and said, hey, like, I mean, again, I hate to always equate this, but when I do this, like when I played Destiny Forsaken at E3 in June, and it wasn't coming out till like September or October, I played like the first story mission, and I immediately knew that Nathan Fillion was not voicing Cade, the character. And I came out to PR, a guy that I'm to this day still very good friends with, and I said, that's not Nathan Fillion. And he looked at me and he goes, I don't know what you're talking about, with this big ass grin on his face. Like, and I was like, he's like,
that's not Castle. That's not Captain Mal.
Nope. He's like, he was literally like, no comment. And I'm like, okay. And so somebody had to come out of a preview for Gotham Knights and be like, that's not 60. You know, that's not 60 frames. Or again, if they were playing something that was 60 frames and then the final product's not 60 frames, that's shit.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why this was like making the rounds, is because like preview stuff got out, which is why people know like, hey, they have like pop songs in the game. It's because people did play it, and the fact that no one mentioned that, unless that was a weird NDA, but we haven't heard too
Somebody
much about
still
it.
would have leaked it.
Oh,
somebody
for sure,
would have like
sure.
taken a picture of it, sent it to Schreier, and be like, hey man, like.
Yeah, so that kind of sucks. To compensate for this, though, not to compensate for this, but it just, luckily they had an announcement in their back pocket.
To soften the blow.
Yeah, they are adding a mode for free that will have 4-player co-op. But it sounds like it's just like, I think it's like Hero Assault mode. So
it's probably like their version of arena mode. Like this endless wave of
that's kind of what it
typical
sounds
Gotham
like.
games. Like you get the levels. I think it's almost I think it's like a skyscraper mode, right? Like you're gonna climb a building.
I didn't look too far into it, but it is like an arena environment. So each floor, there's 30 floors total, so you're like working your way up. So it's like, hey, Batman the Raid, or Robin's the Raid. And that's pretty cool.
I still think this will be very weird though if you can have like 4 Robins. I understand you could have different suits and stuff like that, but like I guess
you haven't read my
I don't know what I don't know what the answer to this is, because like what would suck is like, oh, Dick Grayson, Nightwing is not as good as Robin and Batgirl and
2 Nightwings, 1 cup. Really good.
Like, and if they force you to play one of each, like, that would kind of suck, because it'd be like you'd be in matchmaking, like tapping the button as fast as you can, like, to be first. Like,
yeah, well, that's when they get all those, like, paid DLC for different costumes, so you can, like, oh, my Nightwing's got like knee pads, or I don't know what the fuck they do. Mine's future Nightwing. He has a cybernetic eye.
Even with all of this crap that's going on, like, with this game, I'm still looking forward to playing this game, and I don't know why. Like, I just feel like I'm just getting set up to be disappointed, but I like Batman beat 'em ups. Like, I just like them.
A Batman beat 'em up that's co-op is what we've been wanting since Arkham Asylum, and we already know this is a universal fact. If your game is co-op, you kind of get some brownie points. You will get a pass because it just becomes a chat room for your friends.
They get less for 2-player co-op than you do for 4-player co-op.
Yeah.
They get less brownie points. But it's making me... I just got a brand new PC. And it's making me think, like, do I just want to single-player this on PC? And just play by myself and stream it to you guys?
And hit 60 frames.
And just play the game and be like, hey, I got a new shiny toy, and it can do some stuff a little bit better. But I'm also not the frames guy. Like I said, I don't notice it. Like, I only notice it if I go back. Like, if I like I said, when I went from Miles Morales on PS5 to PS4, like, I noticed a fidelity difference.
I can't wait for you to hit PC Elitist now that you have, like, something that can run like 60 to 90 frames. Yeah.
When I when I played Destiny on the PC before the next gen update came out, and I went to the console without field of view and without the 60 frames. I'm like, okay, I see this. It went away after a day, just because I eventually got adjusted to it and used to it. So it for me, it'd be the same thing. If I play Gotham Knights, I won't see it, unless I play it on PC and then play it on console, which I wouldn't do. Like, I wouldn't buy it on both.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep. I mean, I'm gonna probably
take this. Go ahead.
I'm gonna definitely play it. Like, I'm excited for Gotham Knights just because of the co-op aspect. But yeah, they're not doing the best job of promoting this game last second.
I think Advit's been drinking today.
It's been a long day of work today. But yeah, next story, just a simple one. I'm just putting it on here just in case we don't talk about it next week. But of course, Konami announces they're doing a Silent Hill stream on Wednesday, and Capcom is doing a Resident Evil 4 stream on Thursday. So we are just missing 2 cool streams because we record on a Tuesday. So, hey, Konami's finally going to do a Silent Hill thing. It's the best kept secret in the industry. We didn't know this was coming, and I just can't wait for tomorrow when it says Silent Hill and then it says Bloober Team, and the internet is going to be pissed that it's Bloober Team, because I don't know if you know this, Dave. Bloober Team, I thought the video game community was, like, excited for Bloober Team. It turns out they're not. Like, no one's really excited about
the last 2 things that they've done haven't gotten critically acclaimed. Like, they did Blair Witch and The Medium, right?
The Medium, I think they did Blair Witch, and then they did Layers of Fear 2, which was, like, not praised as well as the first one. Yeah. So a lot of people are kind of putting them in that, like, one-hit wonder camp.
I don't care, because this isn't my genre. So.
Silent Hill is, like, a very cool franchise.
This is very much in your lane. Yeah. I understand. I respect that. And I just think you're putting Silent Hill up a couple more steps.
Oh no!
Konami's gonna come and be like, knock your expectations down, boy.
I totally expect Konami to fuck this up, and the first step is to pick Bloober Team 5 years too late to do it. But they've been out of the video game business for a couple years now, so it makes sense. The last time Konami was relevant,
Silent Hill has Kojima fingers on it, right?
PT does. He was supposed to do the next Silent Hill game, which was PT,
okay,
and then that never happened. But the last time Konami was relevant was probably when, like, Layers of Fear 1 was out. So it makes sense that they're like, hey, let's get that studio to make the next Silent Hill game.
Okay. So just so I'm clear, though, it's not no Kojima, no Silent Hill, right? For you.
What do you mean?
So the other Silent Hill games didn't have any Kojima effect, right?
No. Kojima never had anything to do with Silent Hill.
Just Metal Gear with Konami then.
Yes.
And Kojima.
And he had his name on that like third person Castlevania game, which actually wasn't too bad, but it was like one of those like, did they slap his name on it to sell more Castlevania?
Right.
Yeah. And then Resident Evil 4 is going to have the Resident Evil 4 remake will have a stream from Capcom, I believe. And that's just good just because I think everyone's excited for Resident Evil 4 remake, and also everyone's really nervous of like, don't fuck it up.
Well, I'm kind of curious because this is where Resident Evil started making the turn to like a little bit of like cooperative action shooter, right? Like for 4, 5, and 6?
No. That was 5 and 6. Yeah, 4 is like what brought the franchise back temporarily before they fucked it up with 5 and 6. But 4 is like considered the greatest Resident Evil game of all time. It's been remade and remastered several times, but this is like their big remaster of the game or remake. So people are really excited for it, and people are just hoping it'll fuck it up. I don't think they will mess it up because, again, they've done facelifts to this game enough times that they probably will be okay making this game. Like I have faith that they won't screw it up, and I think they know how important this is. And it's coming out relatively soon, so I'm glad they're doing like streams a couple months ahead of time. Because I think this was like a February, March game. Actually, it might be January, right. Something like that. It's first half of next year.
The time frame that Capcom likes to release stuff is early in the year.
Yeah,
January, February. So, all right. So as of now, nothing's been delayed.
There might have been one or two things, but nothing major that was like, oh, that's important to me and Dave.
All right. So what we're playing and watching. So I went camping this weekend. Michael went camping 2 weekends ago. I went camping this weekend with my wife and my son for Cub Scouts. That was fun. I had a little bit of Halloween stuff at a scout camp near our house, about an hour away. So a little cold at night, but definitely not sleeping in the cabin with like 16 other people and noisy bunks. So we slept in tents. But we did get access to early access to Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope on the Switch, and I have been playing that pretty much the last couple of days. So I'm going to get a couple things out of the way right off the bat. I own the first one, but have not played it more than 10 minutes with Owen, and I have not beaten it. This is a pretty beefy game. I'm 20 hours in, roughly, and just before we recorded, I double checked, and I was like 78% story progression. And almost every destination that I've been to is still under like 50% complete. So there's a lot of like small little side quests, and this is a Mario game. And again, I didn't play the first one, but I mean, in terms of like little bit of open world exploration, figuring out a couple little puzzles on the fly, doing fetch quests and side missions for other characters to help each individual planet, and then as you're doing that, you get into the XCOM turn-based strategy kind of thing to it, which I am in a love-hate relationship with at the moment.
But it's your first one of those, so...
Yeah, I mean, I've dabbled with XCOM, but only like a couple of hours. I get a lot of Super Mario RPG vibes from this game. In terms of like the turn base, it's missing, like compared to Mario RPG, it's missing the timing aspect of it, where like you could have Mario do like a boot stomp, and right before he'd hit the enemy, you'd hit the button, and you'd kind of do this timing thing, and you could keep like extending your attacks longer and longer, stronger, comboing them together. That doesn't have it. This is, and again, if these are in the first one, like I don't know. So this one is Sparks of Hope. I would assume that there aren't sparks in it, but they are taking the sparks from the Galaxy World, the Mario Galaxy World with Rosalina. And the sparks are kind of a main function, and they have purpose in the game as well. You carry sparks with you as companions. Each character, as you progress through the game, you can have 2 other sparks with you that do like wind damage and shock damage and fire damage and splash damage, and so you have enemies that are resistant to certain elements, and you have enemies that are severely weakened by certain elements. You can chain shock together if your enemies are close enough. There are sparks that can bring all the enemies within a certain range, like close to you, for like close range attacks. You do get to like set your team, like before you do a battle. You can like survey the field, see what you're going against, see what the strengths are, see what the weaknesses are, see what the objective is, because the objective is not always to kill everything. The objective can be kill 3 of these specific things, and there's 8 of them on the field. It could be get to the other end of the map, and you're done with. You could do it with killing everything or killing nothing, but you still got to get to the other end of the map. And then some of it could be to mess with the environment, to cause damage to the characters. So I love the Mario formulas, like the Odyssey and the, even going back to like Super Mario 64 and Yoshi's World and all those, like that formula of like explore, earn coins, collect stuff, buy stuff, like unlock things, find all the little hidden stamps, like that aspect is great. And then the battle system is good. It works. It's not a problem. It does require a little bit more thinking. I guess I wish, like, ultimately it had like a undo last move button. That's not exactly what I wanted that to go. I wish I could just go back and then do it again. But I guess that's kind of like the risk reward thing that you have with a turn-based. I don't know what else to call it other than a turn-based XCOM.
It is. It's like the kids' version of that, like
yeah. I love, and you guys
XCOM.
know this about me. Yeah, I love the starter stuff. I love like what Minecraft's been doing with like bringing their player base, like growing with their player base's age. I think this is an awesome entry. I love games that I can, like, Owen can sit on the couch with me and talk to me and ask me questions about what's going on. Get mad when I skip the animation of the cutscene, because every time that you do one of their special moves, it does this cutscene animation. I'm like, okay, I've seen this 100 times. I'm done. The part of the combat that is very frustrating to me is, and this is probably with any turn-based XCOM game like this, is that one, the amount of enemies on the screen that get there's like at most so far there's been 3 in my party so 3 characters in my party, which means that I could do a system of probably like 6 moves. Like it costs move points, and you could do a special effect or a defensive shield, and then your primary weapon fire. Then you're up against like 12 enemies or 14 enemies, and all 12 of them get to go. So it's like you have 6 turns, and then they have 12 to do damage to you. And then like the difficulty curve as it's been ramping up, I feel like that they're more powerful than I am right now. I have been mainlining the story, so I haven't really been necessarily paying attention to how close I am to being on level. That's something else I need to pay attention to. Last night I was playing, and I was like on the same battle for like an hour and a half, and I was struggling through it. Went to bed, got up this morning, beat it first try. So, so it's you're playing a very large game of chess, and I'm thoroughly enjoying that. And then just trying to move your character over and enough. Oh, and then switch the other character. Like, oh, I moved him over too far. Switch back to the character, move him back, switch over. Okay, use him as a jump, and to move to the next level or to the next like higher platform. Get yourself in a defensive position, but also an offensive position at the same time. If you're somebody that likes to min-max and set everything up, like you can do that in this game, but at the same time it has an auto-apply skill tree, which I absolutely love. Like where you can just sit there and say, I have 7 skill points, apply them to each character, and it'll do it. And then what I've always talked about in other games that used to be like a problem for me is not a problem for me with this one. Of like, as you're exploring the world, you're picking up coins. It costs coins to heal your team, to heal your party. And I find myself, before I go into knowingly go into a battle, like, okay, I got to go find more coins. I got to search in this nook and cranny. I got to shake this bush. I got to knock this tree over. I got to find this little secret passage with my sonar thing, so I can find more coins, so I can heal my team before I go into battle. Like I'm not in this abundance of currency for this game that I'm actually making. I feel like I'm making decisions that are tangible. I don't have 10 of the coin that I only need to spend 4 of. Like I only have 3. Okay, where's the 4th one? Let me go find it. Let me go buy exactly what I want, and then it's like, okay, start over again. So like I said, I'm 20 hours in. I'm that far. I'm enjoying it. It's not frustrating. It does get a little irritating on the third and fourth and fifth try of the battle, but like as you start getting annoying. But then when it clicks, or you also get lucky, of where like the enemy can attack you and they can miss, just like you can miss. You could have been they hit your barrier, they hit your low barrier. That when the shot should have not, because it'll show you like when you aim up your shot, it'll say 40% chance of hit, 80% chance critical, and you shoot it and you miss. So all of that's there. The only thing, and I think it might be a problem with my Switch, which I'm a little concerned because the Switch is new. The only thing that I'd say that's a problem that's happening is that I feel like it tries to switch my input setting. Like it tries to like in the middle of like, it's happened like 4 or 5 times where my screen goes black for just a second, and it's almost like it was trying to switch like for me to watch TV or switch my HDMI input, and then but it didn't.
That's weird.
And that could be like, it could be just the thing with my Switch, or my Switch maybe is not sitting cleanly on the dock, or hell, I don't know, the dock's dirty because I've been playing it on the TV, and Owen primarily takes it out of the dock and puts it back in the dock, takes it out of the dock.
Yeah, your USB port might be a little loose if kids constantly moving it.
Yeah, so it's been a fantastic change of pace for me right now, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. The story is good enough. It's got some some decent one-liners in it, and then once I get I'm off this week, the rest of this week. So once I got my new PC, and once I get my new PC like set up, this will probably honestly be something that I would just do a test stream with, just to see if I have everything functioning and working correctly. Just because it comes out like this weekend, so I have to double check the paperwork if I can stream it. I think I'm like 95% sure I can stream it. So
yeah, at least on launch day you will.
Right. I can definitely stream it Friday. So
yeah.
But I would say if you own a Switch and you want, and it can also, I've played it in handheld mode, it works fine. I played it in TV mode primarily with the Pro controller, and I'm having a good time with it that way. But it's definitely worth it's a $60 game for sure, and it's got some witty narrative lines in it, and just some funny moments, and just like seeing how the Rabbids react to stuff, and growing your party. Like it's a solid game. It's one of the better ones that I've played this year.
That's good. I mean, it sounds like Mario games could either be solid or fantastic. For the most part, it's rare you get a bad Mario game, and it's very much is a Mario game as opposed to a Rabbids game. So they, at least Ubisoft's able to uphold that tradition of Mario being solid to good for their output. Did you play anything else, or is it just focused on that?
It was just focused on that. I dabbled a little bit in some Destiny stuff with my buds, but like an hour and a half. The Halloween event's going on, and it started today, and I haven't even started it. That's how I feel about it at this point in time.
Damn. All right. So for me, we were able to get some early access to Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed from Elphonic. They were gracious enough to provide us with 5 codes. So I got a code. Johnny as a Boy got a code. Advent, Dave has one, and then another one went to another friend. So this is.
So I got a. The main reason I did not play this is, one, I got like kind of addicted and hooked onto Mario Rabbids, and then I also knew that you were playing it, so I don't. And then, I planned on some stuff with Johnny as a Boy. He's the main reason I gave it to him. I still will play it with Johnny as a Boy, but right off the bat, before you start talking, he's not giving it a ringing endorsement.
No, I played with Johnny. Johnny's level 56. Okay. Johnny played a lot of Ghostbusters this weekend, which is
also making me less focused on that, and decided to focus more of my stuff on to Mario Rabbids.
Well, so
just to be clear,
I've been playing it. So this is from Elphonic, so Arcadegeddon, Predator, Proving Grounds, I believe it was called. So this is a asymmetrical four Ghostbusters versus one Ghost multiplayer game, and I'll just say, gameplay wise, it's a fun game. So you do play as the Ghostbusters. So you have your proton packs. You basically go into one of the 5 environments. So there's 5 different levels to choose from, and you have people running around, you have ghosts running around, and your task is to bust the ghosts. So you have your proton pack, everybody's got their trap, so you have to basically shoot the ghost to weaken them. Once they're weak enough, you'll have control of the ghost, and you'll be able to steer it to the trap. And then while you're doing that, there are like side objectives that you can also do. So there'll be haunted items that you can find with your like EV meter, and you can destroy those. There are random collectibles throughout the level that you can also grab for more XP. And then there are people in the levels, like NPC, like civilians, who you need to basically calm down, because there is a meter that is watching the damage you do, and also to make sure civilians don't get too scared. So once that meter gets filled up, the ghost wins and everything goes bad. So there's a bunch of different things you can do, and wrangling a ghost is pretty simple. The ghost does have some abilities to get away. There are like rifts that are like spawn points that the ghost can use. If you take the rifts away, it kind of makes the ghost less powerful. But they can also they can close those rifts. They can like conceal them, and then they can like move them around to like try and keep things away from you as they cause havoc of like disturbing people or causing property damage. So gameplay wise, it has some interesting ideas. I feel like they did a good enough job of like, hey, this is how the Ghostbusters should control, and these are the elements you would expect from a Ghostbusters game. They don't do anything crazy that feels like it's straying away from the core of the franchise. But it does feel like there just isn't a lot of depth to this game. And that's where like Johnny was running into issues, because like there's only 5 environments. You know, there's only like, it's like a museum, a restaurant, a hotel, and like a couple other environments. They're not super big. So it's there's not a lot of like crazy like environments with a lot of secrets. It's just kind of standardized setups with different dressing. And because there's only 5 environments, you're only trying to trap one ghost. If you're going against the AI, so if you have 4 co-op buddies, or even if you're by yourself, most of the time you can get the AI in a level finished within 5 minutes, because there's no difficulty when you're going against the AI. Where it does get challenging is when you do go against an actual human ghost. But what we learned early on, and even Johnny, who played significantly more than us, like he was like level 56, like I'm only like level 15 or something, a little past that, is the ghosts seem very overpowered. So it is a hell of a challenge to like capture the ghosts when it's being played by an actual player, as opposed to the AI. To where we're still trying to figure out like what's the most efficient way to do this. Is it only possible when you have 4 players? Because when it was just me, Advent, and Johnny, the game was filling in an AI player. And the AI teammates are really bad. Like, the AI teammates are pretty much worthless, to where, like, if we had an AI teammate, we had no chance of capturing the ghost if it was played by a human character. So there is a balance. I don't know if they need to like kind of nerf the human player when they're a ghost, or if we just haven't found that depth. But Johnny again was in the level 56 or something like that. So like he put a significant amount of time.
Johnny'd the game.
Yeah, and he was even like, "Oh, we got a human player. Good luck, boys. Like we won't be able to do this." So I don't know if there's some balancing that needs to be done, but at the same time, there just seems like a lack of depth. Finding out there's only like 5 environments was kind of a bummer. So when we had our 3 people in there, because we didn't have a 4th at the time, we finished all 5 levels. I think each level in under 5 minutes. So then like we finished the 5th level, and Johnny was like, "All right, you've seen the game. Like, congratulations."
Do they have any post-launch stuff?
I haven't looked too deep into it, but I don't think they might have announced like a roadmap, but there's nothing that's surfaced in the game that's like more content coming soon, which I think would be important for a game like this. It is only $40, so like
they did some more stuff with Predator, right?
I believe so. I believe they added some new characters. Not a lot. Not as much as you would want.
But I also heard that if you played against somebody that knew what they were doing with Predator, you got your ass kicked.
Oh, yes. And this is very much the same way if the ghost is being played by someone that knows what they're doing.
I think the only the fun aspect of this game, again, I haven't played it, but the fun aspect of this game sounds like it would be if you had 5 people like in a Discord chat or a party chat and just went to town. You'd have to have 5 buddies though.
Yeah, just because it's, when you're playing against a human you don't know, there's no voice chat for that person. At least I don't think there was. Because we were in just a party chat.
Be like, hey, Mike, hey, MJC, what are you doing? What do you mean? Like, we'll look behind you. Blah.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like there's much of that. Again, I think it feels like a lack of depth because they say like, hey, you can play this game solo, or against AI, and there's not much there for you to enjoy unless you're in a big group. But even when you're in a big group, there's only 5 environments, so it's just like, oh, okay, and I would be fine with just 5 environments if they were intricate and there was like a lot of like little secrets and stuff going on in the environments.
Like a basement, first floor, second floor, so there'd be different areas.
Because there is like
go into
like most of the buildings have a second floor, but they're relatively small. So it's just like, oh, is there something more here other than like this like prison level? Like, is there anything cool that I can stumble upon? And it might be there, and I just need to dig more in there. It's just I just don't know if I can get like my co-op buddies to like push through to find all that stuff, because there was definitely a feeling after we beat those 5 levels in under 5 minutes, and we're just like, well, I guess there's extra objectives we can do, that you basically take daily tasks, but you can only carry so many daily tasks at a time. So you're just like, okay, let me go turn in my tasks and then get some more, and then let me play that level again. Okay, let me go back, get some more, and then play that level again. So a lot of rinse and repeat early on.
Is like, what's the benefit, like, that Johnny is a boy being level 56?
Cosmetics.
Like, what's the benefit?
Cosmetics for your Ghostbuster. I will say it was nice that they do have Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd returning for this. So that was nice. They're not in the game as much as you would want. There's not a ton of cutscenes in it, but they do introduce you in the game.
I think Johnny said there was like 8 minutes of cutscenes.
Something like that. It's very small, but the game at least introduces you to like, hey, here's Dan Aykroyd, here's Ernie Hudson. And there is a lot of cool things because you get to walk around your firehouse. There will be stuff as you play that fill in the firehouse. I believe they were talking about. I'm still relatively early that I haven't really seen too much of that, but it was cool to be able to walk around the firehouse and explore, like, and seeing Easter eggs from like the movies and also like their expanded lore that is part of this game. So I will say the firehouse is definitely a plus in the game. I think the gameplay, they did a really good job in terms of like, hey, here's how a Ghostbusters game should play. There's just not
enough of it. So
yeah, there just isn't enough. And I hope there's maybe a roadmap for more content. I'm going to dig into it a little bit more this week, even if I have to drag Advent and Johnny through the mud to do it. But I hope there's more into it. I just don't see myself getting addicted to like the daily aspect of like, oh, let me just grab some more tasks.
It's hard for any game to get you the daily sign on. Like, there's very few that have done it,
especially with only 5 levels that are relatively simple. Like it.
But it's just, I mean, it sounds like this is who makes this? Ophonics.
Ophonic, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like this is kind of like what their MO is. Like a very, they take somewhat iconic franchises the last couple times and they make a bite-sized game of them that is fun with a group of people. So.
Yeah, this is definitely like, to just play this with a couple friends is definitely fun. It's the rule we talked about with Gotham Knights. If it's a co-op game, you kind of get a pass because it gets used as like a chat room, and that's fine, that's fun. But in terms of like, oh, I'm playing by myself, there's not much in there. And with so many different like co-op experiences out there, it's really hard to be like, yes, Ghostbusters is something we have to play. I think they were smart to release it near Halloween they might get some people on there. I was basically calling it, like, as I was playing it, I was like, oh, this is like Phantasmophobia for cowards, because it's like less scary because it's Ghostbusters. Like, the soundtrack is pretty catchy. They are able to capture that aspect of it. They do have the Ghostbusters song in there. But they do warn you, if you stream this game, mute the Ghostbusters theme song because you will get striked by Sony Pictures or the singer of the Ghostbusters song. But yeah, I will say, like, it's on par with like Predator. Maybe it's not as addicting as Predator because Predator like was pretty intense. But I liked Arcadegeddon, which came out a couple months ago. So I think my expectations were a little higher for the Ghostbusters game because I did think Arcadegeddon was a good game with some questionable writing, but gameplay loop wise and depth, Arcadegeddon had that. So Ghostbusters, I was expecting.
This 4v1 or monster versus team thing, just like they're just having a hard time finding. Like ever since Evolve, Predator, whatever that Resident Evil thing that they tried.
But the thing is, they also did the Friday the 13th game, which was another like asymmetrical like 4v1 game, or it might be 5v1. That was a really big hit. The only problem with that game is the license was lost eventually, and they had to end it. So like, it seems like that genre is like very hit or miss in terms of like when an IP, when a license captures, it does really well. Like there was an Evil Dead style game like this, Dave, that released a couple months ago, and like that kind of came and went, and it should have been successful because you have, you know, Friday the 13th was successful, and then I'm forgetting the other one that has like scary movie monsters and villains that like rotate in and out. That's another one of those games. But yeah, I think it's a good attempt for Ghostbusters. It just needs more, and I think I probably would have wanted a more story-driven game than what we got. Instead, we got kind of like a very light...
Somebody saying Dead by Daylight?
Dead by Daylight. There we go. I think instead of like...
So like, I guess I almost feel like it just my perspective from what you're saying is less story, more levels... Less levels, better story. Either one.
Yes, yeah. Like either give me like a really interesting story instead of just like the few cutscenes you got. Then I can deal with like repetitive levels or very little levels. But instead you get very little story, very little variety levels. It's just like you nailed the gameplay. If you just had nailed a little bit more on like the story and a little bit more on the like environment depth, this could have been like a really great game. Instead, it's just kind of like, oh, you know what? I'm not offended I played it, but I'm not like dying to go back to it. Like I'm only going to go back to it because I want to cover this more for the podcast next week.
Would you recommend the sixth person in your gaming group to spend $40 on this game?
No. And that's where it kind of hits. Yeah. Like this would have been a hard sell, unless they're a super Ghostbusters fan. This would have been a hard sell to be like, I'm going to convince 4 other people to go in on Ghostbusters with me. That would have been a really big ask for people to be like, hey, I know all this other stuff is coming out right now. I think Call of Duty's out in a couple weeks. God of War's out in a couple weeks.
But Ghostbusters, bro.
Yeah. Plague Tale's out this week. Like it would have been a really big ask. And I think we kind of saw this coming because for a while they were like, hey, Ghostbusters comes out this fall. And then it felt like suddenly they're like, hey, Ghostbusters is out in a couple weeks. So I didn't really have a lot of confidence going into it. So just coming out of it being like, it's okay is probably just not enough. Because it feels like it technically is a games as a service, but it does not provide much service for me to get into.
I'm surprised that something like this didn't launch on one of the services.
Yeah, it seems like this would have been a nice boost, especially at Sony Pictures. So, man, if they would have released this as a PlayStation Plus game, we probably would be having a different discussion because there'd be a way bigger...
There'd be a party chat going with 5 or 6 people wanting to do something. Or, you know, like, all right, I'm dipping out. Oh, I'm taking the spot I got next.
Yeah, and even if it didn't have depth, you could have had a bigger rotation of people jumping in and out of it. But if this ends up becoming a PlayStation Plus game down the road, I could see it finding some success, at least for a little bit of time, just because it needs
party games are great. They just have to have enough stuff in them.
Yeah, and part of the thing is like we were playing before release, so we didn't always get like people in because there just wasn't a lot of people playing pre-release. They did have like specific times where like they told media like, hey, get on at this specific time and developers will be available. So
I don't want to play the dev as a ghost. I don't want to get my ass kicked. And then Advent's like, they need to give it an open mic. Imagine Dave Chappelle Slimer going, catch a bitch. Before you get slimed. TikTok would have been made famous for it at least.
You can probably do that. They might have open chat, I believe. I just don't know if you can hear the enemy. But yeah, no, I don't know. I wanted just a little bit more. I'm going to play it throughout the week now that it's officially out. Maybe I won't have like AI filling in the team as much. Or because that's the problem is like right now, if I want to play a full game, I need to get 5 people to coordinate their schedules to play. Yeah. And it's kind of hard. Which was
our concern with getting that. Like, thank you to the PR company that gave us 5 codes. That's great. Getting 5 people that can match up our schedules. Michael and I can't match up our own schedules.
I know, which is why I ended up taking 3 codes and then you took 2 codes.
Totally fine.
Just so we can like, okay, we will get a group together somehow, some way. But yeah, that's Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. The only other game I've been playing is Overwatch 2. I think I'm addicted to Overwatch again, but it's...
Is it grabbing you?
Not quite. Like, it was a very buggy launch week. I got placed really low in placements, and it pissed me off.
Yep. And then now he's back on that grind.
And what pissed me off more is Blizzard a couple days after I was ranked really low was like, hey, our ranking system's bugged, so a lot of you might have been placed really low and you weren't supposed to be.
Damn it.
Yeah, we'll fix that, Instead I'm like, man, you put me in a dark place for 2 days. I was like, am I trash?
It's marketing, man. They got you.
Yeah. So now
you thought you were good at Overwatch 1.
Yeah.
Now you're just terrible at 2.
Yeah. And then there's also like Overwatch Decay. Like the longer you don't play, they would lower your ranking. So add that with a bug system, and I was just like, son of a bitch.
Let me pick the sticks back up and start practicing some more.
Yeah. But even some friends that I know are really good were like, yeah, I got placed in bronze too, and I'm like, what the fuck? But yeah, I'm playing it. The Moira hate is very much real right now, and I'm a Moira main, so I'm enjoying that a lot. Nothing better. Like I told you a couple weeks ago, I miss getting hate messages. Yeah. I'm getting them hate messages. Yes. Oh my God. Just put it directly in my veins. I fucking love it. Nothing better than
you should totally like tweet some of those, like darken out the names or whatever.
Oh yeah, totally. I probably should start doing that. But it's
crop them, even just crop them. Like
just having people being like heal more, and then I look and I'm like, I'm healing more than anybody in this game. Yeah. And I'm killing more than anybody in this game. I don't know
if you noticed this or not, because I'm assuming you're playing on PlayStation, correct?
Yeah.
So I think you probably know this, but I don't know if you do or don't. If you take a screenshot, you can actually share it from the app now on your phone.
Yes, yeah. That's how I was sharing all the Rumbleverse stuff that I been posting. Which I got to get back to Rumbleverse. I kind of missed that game, but like right now, as soon as we're done recording, I'm playing Plague Tale.
The free to play game market over the last like couple of months, it's not great, but it's consistently solid.
There's something new to play almost every month.
Yeah, Metaverse, Rumbleverse, Overwatch. Like there's a lot of this stuff. Like at least once a month, like we're getting something. Like whether it's an update to Fall Guys and like any of this stuff. Like, there's plenty of there. I also want to play. Like I'm hearing great things about Plague Tale Requiem. I need to play Innocence first.
You should. It's really good. Recommend.
Yep. It's gonna go Rabbids, Gotham, God of War, and probably Plague Tale back to back. Like that's kind of my plan.
The only thing that worries me about Plague Tale is the thing that I talked about before, where people are like, "It's
too much at one time."
No, it's like everyone's saying. Oh, the reviews are like, "It's so much bigger than the first game," and I'm like, I didn't want it to be bigger, but it sounds like it's still good. But I just hope it's not too big for its own good.
Yeah.
Because I like the tight, like 10-hour game, so I'm hoping it's still there. But that is all I have been playing and watching. I haven't really been watching anything really.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna jump to question and comments. We have one question from the announcement today. Ben Palmer used his hashtag AskDDG. thoughts on the new PS5 controller. So Sony announced their new, their version of like the Elite controller, their version of Scuff. The PS5
Edge.
Is DualSense Elite or DualSense Edge.
Yeah.
The Xbox Elite, sorry. And it's $200. And it looks like a relatively good paddle-based remappable controller. It looks solid.
Yeah, I really like
it needs customization. Like color customization.
Oh, especially Xbox just announced that they're adding their Elite controller to
but
the
not
colorways.
For the Elite, is it?
No, they just added
the
it.
Elite has been.
It's getting the colorway thing where you can customize the colors. The only thing that bums me out, I like that you can remove the D-pad on the Elite controller, and this one you can't remove the D-pad. So
they seem to just like Sony just seems to be stuck with parallel analog sticks no matter what. Like
which I'm fine with, but I like the idea of being able to swap out the D-pad period, and you just can't do that
but
with
let
this.
the player have a choice. Like if they like offset sticks, if they like set sticks, like let them have a choice.
Would that be too much? That would be too much work for this type of controller because you would need that analog nub in two different spots. But like, I wish you could replace the D-pad with it. I love the way like the Elite feels, and I have the Astro A40, which I haven't used since I don't think it's compatible with PS5. I haven't used it in a while. But I like the idea of like, oh, my analog stick's wearing out. Let me swap that out. Oh, my D-pad's not feeling right. Let me switch it to another D-pad. So this one just having the sticks be replaceable is fine, but like I would want more customization because I don't use the back buttons, the paddles. I never use them.
I've had a couple of them sent to me. I've tried and I just forget that they're there.
I always put like the most basic task on them. I never use them for like what a pro player would use them for.
I do think like being able to replace your stick to hopefully reduce whenever stick drift happens versus just buying another controller.
Yeah.
It's a huge win. I used this example in the Discord
They're just
today.
Caps,
like most
though,
of you,
so that's the only thing that worries me.
Yeah, most of you know it's the age old proverb of like, okay, is a $10 pillow every year for 10 years better than $100 pillow for 10 years? Like this is where you're at. This is 3 controllers, a little less.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you go through 3 controllers in 2 years or something like that, if you're one of those people that is really hard on your controllers or just kind of wear them down fast. This is probably something for you. And it's right in line. It's a little bit more expensive than the Elite, and it's a little less expensive than a Scuff. So it's kind of like right in that it's in a good price point. Somebody commented on my Twitter post about it being half the price of the console. I don't look at it that way.
It's a premium device. I can't.
Yeah,
really
I look
complain.
at it as it's an investment. Like if it better last longer than any of the regular DualSenses.
I'm sure someone's gonna do a hard test within a month of just like I spin the stick a million times and it finally broke. So hopefully it lasts a little bit better. But that's what worries me about like the D-pad or the buttons not being removable or anything like that. It's just like, okay, so that's still a basic controller. Those buttons can wear and break and you can't do anything about it. So we'll see what happens there. Because this only feels like, hey, you can replace your caps and it's got some back pedals, which to me just isn't enough. Though I like the carrying case. I'm a sucker for like accessories like that for some reason. So
most of those controllers come with that though.
Yeah, they always do.
Ship.
Yeah. And I like it because it keeps them organized. Especially they usually come.
Because you got to take it with you to your buddy's house to show them that you're a real gamer. It's like the new I have a better gaming chair than you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you take it to a bar and then just like bring it and then open it, like people are gonna come to you and talk to you and be like, "You're so cool."
Put their underwear on the counter or something.
Yeah. Like, oh, what do you got in there? Drugs? Nah, my dual sense edge. And just open it up and there we go. But yeah, it looks nice. I probably won't buy it just because I feel like justifying these means I have to find use for the back pedal, and I can never find use for those.
Yep. All right, that's our show for this week. So you can follow us on Twitter at Digital Days Pod. You can follow Michael at the First MJC. Hopefully see some Overwatch hate messages. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. I should be posting some pictures once I get. I'm actually like really, really looking forward to going away from a 2 PC setup. I know I can use like USB switches and everything like that, but on my desk right now is 2 keyboards, 2 computer mice. So I'm actually looking forward to the consolidation and kind of rearranging some stuff and not having audio cables in, audio cables out, because I have a 2 PC setup with streaming and gaming as well as recording. So
Daisy
I'm kind of
chain
looking
those
forward
monitors.
to condensing it down. Yeah. Well, I think the one I have still supports 2 or 3, so that's really. I mean, I use 2 on on my current gaming PC, and I use 1 for the streaming, so I really shouldn't need much more.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll see. So I should, I'll put some pictures out of that, like once I take it out of the box and everything. So.
Oh, and then you got to buy the wallpaper engine on Steam. It's like $5, and you get fancy wallpapers.
Oh, okay.
And gives you some LED lights.
It's like RGB galore.
I know, but you
like
need extra lights on those shelves behind you. Yeah. Your chair doesn't look like a race car. We got to get you one of them race car chairs. I think they make them for tall people.
Not say none of those chairs fit me, sir.
I know.
You've seen me sit in those chairs.
I know. It's always funny because they're like, we made this for every gamer. Dave sits down. Get the fuck out of our chair. Okay.
It's like playing VR. Back up. I can't. I'm on the wall.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Like when Sony had those little cube rooms.
Yeah.
And they're like, you need to stand like, oh, sir, just take the headset off. Like, okay. Yeah.
All right. So Facebook group, Discord server, Patreon, Teesprings are all linked in the show notes. We appreciate you guys listening. Please remember to review and share the show. Write a review, and that helps tremendously. I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.